This is The Rewind, produced in the Fayetteville studios of WCLN-FM. Thank you for joining us here in the Daily Grind. We have got some guests in studio with us today, and we're so excited to welcome Dr. Richard Lee, who's the lead pastor from Village Baptist Church in Fayetteville, Tony McVickers, who's the senior pastor at Rockfish Church in Raeford, and Jeff Hoglen, who's the senior pastor at Church at the Creek to the north of Spring Lake. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for taking time.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for having us.
And we are excited that you are here. In this area, there is no denying the influence of Fort Bragg on our community. As far out as Anderson Creek and as near as the center of Fayetteville, where you are, Dr. Lee, there are 52,000 active duty soldiers, 16,000 reserve, 8,000, almost 9,000 civilian employees, and when you add to that, the Army retirees and their active duty family members, there are almost 250,000 people directly related to Fort Bragg's presence in this community, and I've got to believe it affects ministry in the area as well. It's got to be much different than it is in an area like even Charlotte. Charlotte is a large city. Lots of people there come from all over the country, but the military brings with it new challenges, different ways of looking at the world. Let me just ask you guys, to share freely, how does the military's influence affect the way your ministry has been shaped at your church?
Well, with the population stats you just ran, it has to influence everything we do. 60% easy of our church is connected, and so we need to be conscious of that and talk through the restlessness of what all that means in their life, as well as how we deal with things. Then the whole transient nature of things, people coming and going always. So
we're in the same boat. I think about 65% of our organization is military. It's interesting. There's some unique challenges, but what we've learned and what we're discovering, I think it's kind of an ongoing process as you kind of learn and grow, is that whatever you value becomes very, very obvious in the culture. Your values will shape your culture. I say it this way, that we are not necessarily a church for military. We are a church of military. We've been so inundated. It's not an us and them kind of thing, and that's a culture that we really retain. As far as the transient, it's tough, because you want to connect deeply, and women have a tendency to do that. Women will connect slower, but they will connect much deeper. Men, they will come, they'll connect kind of superficially. You know how we are. We can kill something together, and we're best buddies. But women, it's a little different. So balancing those two, creating a culture and an atmosphere that allows the men to come and take part in that man culture kind of thing, and then have substance and real relationship. I remember my wife saying, after being at Rockfish for a few years, she said, it's just so tough because I will really fall in love and begin to develop relationships with these women, and all of a sudden they're gone. And I remember she struggled with it. There come a point where she's like, you know what, I just don't want to have friends who are in the military because it's so hard to say goodbye, and it's not an option. It's not. God dealt with her, and we worked through that, and we've learned something, that kind of catch and release, to hold on very tight but hold on very loose at the same time.
Disciple well and send out.
Yeah.
So we were a little bit different in the fact that we're a church replant, and so we started off with mainly retirees and civilians, and over the course of the last few years, we've grown to probably about the 50% mark of those who are attached to the military or related to the military in some fashion, and we're experiencing the same thing these two men of God are going through, having them come in, get plugged into the church family, knowing that they're here just for a season, and while it's hard, we embrace that, and we've made it a part of our culture as well.
Well, let me ask this. As you are developing the ministry, the leadership of your church, even the women's ministries, the things that we do inside a church, it's not just the transient nature that affects that, where they come, they're here for 2 or 3 years. It's this constant transient nature where they come, the families get ingrained in the church, or you begin to minister and disciple, and then one of the family members or more leaves for a period of time, and you have the family member there to minister to. How does that affect internally how you organize things, or does it?
Well, we have a support network trying to come alongside those families, and so we've got a team of people. It helps us be aware and be conscious of what's going on in family life. And quite frankly, both of my neighbors on either side of me live in that world, and so it's a constant reminder. But to come along, encourage, make sure we help with whatever the needs are, because the loneliness sets in, and all those things. We may go on a 10-day mission trip, and that's kind of our gig, but theirs is months.
Right.
We had a special guest come in recently, and he made a comparison. He travels like 300 days a year. And as he was talking, he's not from military. He's never been involved. I don't know that he's ever lived in a military community. And he made a comparison. And he said, I travel, X amount of days per year. I'm away from my family. He said, so don't talk to me about deployment. And if you don't understand, there's a little bit of difference between, traveling business, which at any time, honestly, something happens, you can jump on a plane, you can be home in a matter of hours. And there's also not that idea that your wife is at home worried if you're going to get killed, generally, on business trips. So it is different. Being aware of that, being cognizant of that, and creating that safe environment. Something that we've discovered very important is as we catch and release, as they deploy, and when they come back from the deployments, how do we re-engage them? Really big, because it's awkward. It's like you have somebody who hasn't shown up at church for like a month.
Sure.
What do? They walk through the doors and you're like, you don't know what to do. But
not only that, they've experienced some really difficult things more than likely. So it's not just they didn't show up. They've got a whole new perspective on life, really.
Sure. You get them back, and you get back their experiences over the last year. You get back the trauma that they've went through. You get back so what we've learned is man, you grab them, you embrace them, and that's why the culture is so important. Even when it comes to having, I hate to use the terminology, man culture, with toxic masculinity and all that stuff running around, but having a man culture where a man can come back and really see other guys and get back to normalcy as quick as possible. We found that is very important.
Yeah. So I believe the same thing. That relationships are key, and so whenever we have folks that are being deployed, we make sure that we're there for the families. When they come back, we engage with them, and it's all about communication, relationship, and especially on the family side. That's when we really shine. We're there for the families. We have a group of folks that reach out constantly. Some of the folks that are downrange, deployed, we actually have care packages that go out to them, letting them know that we care, we love them, and we connect with them as much as we can long distance.
Once again, we're talking today with Dr. Richard Lee from Village Baptist Church in Fayetteville, Jeff Hoglen, Senior Pastor at Church at the Creek in Anderson Creek, and Tony McVickers, Senior Pastor of Rockfish Church in Raeford. And guys, I think we can all agree that since 9/11, the face of our military has completely changed. In the last 17-plus years, we've had an all-volunteer force made up largely of millennials who have been out doing things that the generation of military before them didn't do. They didn't face the same problems and challenges or conflicts that they're facing. And what we have found, I think, in the last few years is that some of these men and women, when they return back to their homes and to their home churches, is that they don't raise their hand for recognition the way that perhaps the generation before them might have done. I was at a meeting yesterday with about 40 men and women. They were all pastors or ministry leaders of some sort, and somehow the subject of patriotism came up, and somebody asked, how many of you here served in the military? And only 2 of those hands went up, and it was a little weird in a community like this to have so few people who identified directly with the military. But what I'm seeing is that the guys that are coming back and the women that are coming back from combat since 9/11 and clear back in 2001, these are not people who want to raise their hand and say, recognize me. They're people who just want to fit in. They don't even seem to want programs geared specifically toward the military. From where you sit, what is it they're saying?
Man, that's my job. And then the follow-up is, I just want to be normal. And so there's a fine line where there are those who need the recognition and appreciation, and we do. And yet there are also those that say, can I just fit in, and not go down that road. And so it's an ongoing challenge, dealing with combat recovery type things, and so we have some of those types of options for folks. But then engaging with them on a learning, almost a case-by-case basis. It's not a cookie-cutter approach.
Sure.
Yeah.
I had one of our military ministry leaders come in, and I was just having a very candid conversation with him, and he said, "Look," he said, "I don't want to come to church and duplicate my job."
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So it is different. The statement I made earlier is their military, this generation, in my experience, and I say that humbly. Again, I don't know everything, and I just know what I've experienced. But they're not looking for what I referred to as greasy recognition. They're looking for authentic association, and to do that, they're willing to check rank. They're willing to step aside from all that stuff, and they just want to connect. And I think that's important.
You were saying earlier, too, that that's actually changed the way that you all at Rockfish Church do ministry, that you have less programs than you did before for military, which I think is really interesting.
Well, we do. We restructured. When we saw the Bragg realignment coming, when we saw the influx, and we knew about the soldiers that were coming, we were kind of ahead of the curve. We were doing some things some other churches weren't doing. We were laying the foundation for, to accommodate that. We knew there would be a lot of people coming and going, so we changed our ministry structure to allow for team leadership as opposed to individual leadership, because we knew we want to use them. We were told, look, don't use military folks in your leadership positions. Don't use them as elders. Don't use them as deacons. Don't use them as ministry leaders, because if you do, you're setting yourself up for failure. Well, we got a problem. We're 60 to 65% military, and they have great gifts. What are you going to do? Not use them?
I've heard that, and I've had people say the same. But we're missing out on discipling and raising up leaders, too.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about our turf. If we don't engage them, then we're robbing the next church of that leadership opportunity, too.
That's good.
That's right.
And so I've kind of pushed back against that to say, plug in quick. And, Jesus' model of discipleship was 3 years, and so let's get after it and send people out.
Amen. I love that.
Yeah.
Kind of like, you've been here over 3 years, it's time to go.
There you go.
Another interesting, thing that you have to adjust for is that, we have a lot of special operations here. So a lot of those guys, more and more, are here long term. Right. Then you have the other ones that are not so focused and specialized, and they come every 2 years. I was trying to explain to a guest speaker. I said I was working with a young couple, and this young couple had been married 3 years, and they had spent less than 12 months under the same roof.
Right.
Right. How do you reconcile a marriage like that? I mean,
Huge.
They didn't even know each other for for the most part, and you take that for granted if you're not here. And how do you deal with that? Unique challenges.
Now, Dr. Lee, one of the things you mentioned was combat recovery. That actually is a program. Is that something that you use now in administering to
we
soldiers?
do it by semesters. We're just opening up a second campus, a half-mile off post at Riley Road, and so we're doing that primarily at that location, just more visibility and ease of getting people on and off post. So that's a couple of times a year. We've got a team of people that walk through that. It's a 12 to 14-week process. And doing that. The other thing we're trying to engage is when we polled our folks of how can we best meet their needs, child care was the biggest deal. Child care and date nights. And so we're doing a parents' night out, it's pretty regularly. Just had one last week and had about 30 new families come and engage. And then we were able, through some gifts, able to give some people some gift cards and go on a date night and, do this thing.
Cool.
And we're working towards, here's some conversation sheets if you want that to help the communication. But the big idea is we'll take your kids, you guys go spend some time together.
Well, you mentioned the second campus that you guys just launched last Thursday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And if you got a good arm, you could throw a rock from there to the gates of Fort Bragg. How do you feel like that's going to, over time, how do you feel like that's going to affect the ministry of Village Baptist Church proper?
Well, we're excited about it. I mean, it's two different locations, two different areas of our city, two different communities, if you will. And so we are excited about the opportunity. Granted, it's an experiment. We're doing church on Thursday nights instead of Sundays, there. And so Thursday nights.
At a Baptist church?
Yeah,
oh, my
exactly.
goodness.
Can you believe it? So,
and I'm a Baptist, so I can say that.
I'm a recovering one, but nevertheless, Thursday nights at Riley Road, Sundays at McPherson, and It's an experiment. We're having fun. 287 people last week, so we'll see what happens.
How are you kind of getting the word out to the community around there?
The same as everybody. We've gone door to door and invited. We've done direct mail. We'll get some road signs. There's greater traffic on Riley Road than there is at McPherson. 10,000 more cars a day are off Riley Road than there are at McPherson. That. So we're trying to step up our game from a signage and a communication standpoint. The other thing is just building those connections, being available to chaplains, hosting events right off because they need meeting space. And so we want that to be more of a community center, not some exclusive church type thing. So.
Good idea. Yeah. Now, is Thursday night, you mentioned it's an experiment, but is Thursday night kind of when you're going to do church, or you're not going to do it on Thursday?
And we're all in. We're 1 week in, but we're all in, So we're not abandoning ship, So we're going, Thursday nights, we were just looking at another alternative, and that seemed to be the least resistant night from a culture. Sports owns the rest of the week, and there's a reason NBC says it's must-see TV night. People are home, and so it's the availability factor.
Now, Tony, I know out at Rockfish Church, some of the things you do, you have had Friday and Saturday night churches for a long time. Until this last Friday, I think that was your last Friday night service, but you continue to do the Saturday night services, and it's actually a very different population that shows up for those Friday and Saturday night services.
It really is. A lot of folks from other churches will come and just hang out because it's kind of a unique service, and it's more fellowship oriented. And so you've got local folks who come, people who kind of want to put their toe in the water and experiment, or maybe they do have another church and they just kind of want to come out and hang out with believers. It's huge. That authentic relationship and fellowship is something that not just the military want, when they come to a new area, which is, tough to get, but everybody wants it. We as believers, we're I know it sounds cliche, we're better together.
Absolutely, we are.
Doing that community-wise, important. I couldn't agree with what you said. You said something earlier. You were talking about having something with the children. Mm-hmm. Just imagine you come to a brand new city, you know nobody. You walk into somewhere, a church, and so if you're a pastor out there and you have a church or you have an organization, I would encourage you, have an excellent children's program. You want them to have warm fuzzies when they come in and drop their children off to complete strangers. Yeah, that is in a city that may be brand new to them. You want to know and make it very, very clear. I think
that children are safe here.
Absolutely.
And children are driving the deal. They're going to decide whether mom and dad's coming. It's not the other way around. In fact, we had a family this week from the Parents' Night Out, and they were telling me, the kids were basically saying, y'all stay away, we want to stay here. Okay, that's a win.
That's a win. Yeah.
Dr. Lee, your launch date last Thursday, it kind of revolved around a meal and fellowship, too. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mission Barbecue helped us out with some food and enjoyed that. We're going to do food trucks. Again, that's part of the experiment. We're going to do food trucks, people, $5-7, whatever it is for a meal, and then come in for worship and try to get to know people and just build that fellowship factor on a Thursday night in the parking lot and see what happens. So far, so good.
Yeah, I love that.
One weekend.
Yeah.
So are people able to come and get kind of what we would consider a full worship experience?
Yes.
Is there music and teaching?
It's much more casual than our Sunday morning expression necessarily, but band and music. We try to stay at about an hour.
Yeah.
If the preacher dude will shut up and not go so long.
You should talk to him
they're
about that.
long-winded at times,
I have
right?
daily conversations.
Send him a sharply worded letter.
But about an hour, and we're learning, so it's new. We're kind of treating it as a church plant, if you will, even though it's one church, 2 locations. So we don't have the rest of our strategy. We're going to do worship well, and then as we accomplish it, and then we're doing the mission connections with the school adoption and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But do worship well, and then as we grasp that, then we'll expand other offerings.
And I know your church had to be excited about the launch. Out of those 287, how many would you venture were first-time folks?
We don't have a good way to capture that. The guess is 60 to 75.
Great. That's great.
We'll take it all day long. And so engaging with new people, learning and meeting some new friends, and having some good gospel conversations. We live in this post-Christian culture. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure our church culture understands that. But we live in a day where we're meeting children who is Jesus like they've never heard who that is.
Right.
And that's shocking to our church culture, but that's the world we live in.
No, we get that too, brother.
Yeah.
Some of the kids that are coming in, we assume they know who Noah is.
Right.
They don't.
We have to quit assuming. And
Right.
so some of the, even the beauty of some of our staff and support team that have just recently come because of the military, they don't know some of the stories and say, you're awesome. We need you because now I'm going to learn from you.
Yeah.
Because I have assumed too much.
Yeah.
You know.
That's good.
That's why your presence in the community, one, I want to say to both of you, thank you so much for what you're doing. What you just said is why we need good pastors and good churches and good places for people to come and get equipped. And even with WCLN, Dan, I appreciate so much what you're doing.
Absolutely, bro. This is huge.
Yeah, the impact that you're having in the community, and as pastors, I want to covenant with you to pray for you, to lift you up. We're on the same team. This is Team Jesus.
Team
Yes,
Jesus.
sir.
And if we become kingdom minded, I'm not in a competition. We're not in
Not at all.
competition.
Yep.
This is one Lord, one Savior, one kingdom, and we just want to pull together and make that happen. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, that's
so
my
much.
heart as well, guys. I'm
Amen.
grateful. Yeah. Although you do need to get your hair.
You need to get
Raise
in
your
line,
guys.
buddy.
Y'all have inspired
If you've never seen these guys, two of them have a hair deficit, and Tony does not. So
I don't think she spun it to the negative,
missing it.
didn't she? Yeah.
But we all have eyebrows.
that's true. That's true.
That's what we got to do. We got to find that common place and build from there. That's how we build
Dan's
community.
got enough for both of us.
That's true. He's got a lot of hair.
And I'd be willing to share. Well, thank you guys again for taking time. There's so much that's happening in ministry around the area, and
This is just a small part.
as I shared with one of you when you came in. I woke up for whatever reason at 2:00 in the morning thinking, Lord, is 30 minutes going to be enough? And it wasn't. But thank you for giving us the 30 minutes just to talk about what you're doing with ministry. And is there some way that we can help you do what you're doing as we wrap things up today?
Well, I just thank you for helping us get the word out because we are on the same team.
Amen.
And we're not competing with one another. We're competing with a common enemy.
There we
so
go.
getting the word out and let's make disciples. This whole thing began in Acts. First convert was a military guy. And so if we can take this gospel out through the military highway, that's where we go.
GoFundMe, Rockfish Church. Just kidding, kind of.
Guys, I love this. I love this conversation. I love what you're doing here, Brother Dan, Sister Laura. You guys are making a difference. So thank you for inviting us in here to have this conversation. I wish we could have listening when we were playing some songs because the conversation off air was just as good. And but anyways, I appreciate you guys. And to my brothers to my right, I love you guys. I do appreciate you. And I reiterate the same thing, man. Team Jesus, guys. We are not competing with one another. And if the body of Christ can get hold of that, man, how awesome would that be? Whenever we put stuff out there, we go the extra mile to say, hey, if you are plugged into a local church, stay there, be faithful, get busy doing the work of God. If you're looking for a church home, that's when we put the invite out there. If you don't know Jesus, we'd love to have a conversation with you. But as far as churches, man, we're not competing. We're working together
As one.
As one.
Yep.
Well, again, Dr. Richard Lee, lead pastor at Village Baptist Church in Fayetteville, Tony McVickers, senior pastor at Rockfish Church in Raeford, and Jeff Hoglen, senior pastor of Church at the Creek in Anderson Creek. Thank you guys so much for taking time today. We love you guys.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you again for joining us here in The Rewind. I'm Dan DeBruler, and I hope you'll visit online sometime. Just go to Christian1057.com. In the meantime, click subscribe now and never miss a thing.